This is Mitch, and welcome to the 1000houses.com podcast. I have Chris Miles with us today. This guy is a cash flow expert, and he's an anti-financial advisor, which I like a lot. I like anything anti-traditional because, the way I look at it is if it ain't broke, break it. He's a leading authority on entrepreneurship and teaches professionals how to get their money out and working for them. Chris Miles' Money Show has been featured on U.S. News. I'm reading this because I can't remember it. I don't have that big a brain. Chris Miles' Money Show has been featured in U.S. News, CNN, Money, and EO Fire, and has been proven to help people get their money out and working for them. And he's going to teach us today how to make your money work for you twice. So, Chris, how you doing?
Man, fantastic. Glad to be on here.
So we're running rough today. I don't know why. Sometimes it's firing on all cylinders, and other times I have trouble like getting a word out of my mouth or something. It's one of those mornings. But you know what? We're going to jump into it one way or the other, get it going. I'd like to pay homage to my sponsor, taxfreefuture.com. If you do not have a tax-deferred or tax-free account in which to grow your finances, please check out taxfreefuture.com. There's 37 little video vignettes. I can show you how I've taken the minimal investment of I think at the time it was $250, and how I never put any more money into these accounts and took them into accounts that anyone would be proud to have. Okay. So, check it out, taxfreefuture.com, because you will not believe what your financial advisors are not telling you. And that's a good segue right to you. Chris, what are our financial advisors not telling us? Why are you an anti-financial advisor?
Well, kind of like when I was on the show last time, it was about a year or so back, right? I mean, we were talking about the fact that financial advisors are really just salesmen in suits, right? Or saleswomen in suits. Not that they're trying to do anything wrong, right? They're not trying to hurt you or anything like that, but they're trained by institutions that are selling you crap, right? So
wait, hold on. Is that CRAP? Do I have that right?
Yeah, exactly. It's
okay.
An acronym for can't retire as
anytime possible.
Impoverished, or pauper, right? Something like that.
Can't retire anytime properly. There you go.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah,
can't retire anytime properly. Crap. CARP. Got it.
Got to trademark that. So, so that's the thing is like they're telling you that there's this big returns. And I used to be there, right? Like in 2002, like right after 9/11, I joined being a financial advisor, did that for 4 years. And the reason I left in 2006 and went more the real estate route and following more alternative investments was because when I looked at real numbers, it was dismal. It was depressing, right? Because you're always taught and trained that, the market does 10 or 12% average for the last 2 billion years since the dinosaurs roamed the earth and all that kind of stuff, right?
Yeah, unless you die during the down cycle, or you get 60 during the down cycle when you need it, and then it's not working at all.
Exactly, yeah. I mean, when the meteor hit 63 million years ago, I mean, that was a bad depression we went through, but, no pun intended.
Stock market crashed.
That's right. It was a big crash that year.
No, it was the rock market, I think.
The rock market. That's right. It took you back to the Stone Age. But but that's the thing, right? Is that, we're told that it's been averaging 10 or 12%. But in truth, the S&P 500 has only averaged a real yield of about 7.5%. 7.4 to 7.6, depending on the day. Right?
I knew that somehow. People are telling me, and my favorite thing is like, I help people. I get out people's money at 8 or 9 or 10%, and I give them this very fantastic piece of collateral. Like they'd be better off if they got my collateral. Fortunately for me, no one's ever gotten my collateral. But and they're telling me, well, you're making 15, 16% rate of returns right now in the stock market. And I said, okay, so you've sold. I mean, so you sold. They go, no, I haven't sold. And I said, well, you haven't made jack.
That's right.
You haven't made crap if you haven't sold, because it's all just a pipe dream till you sell. Mm-hmm. And the question is, when are you going to sell? Are you going to sell while it's a 14% ROI?
Right.
Well,
and you're absolutely right. The last 10 years have averaged about 14% real return, which just means that if the 30 year has been 7.5%, that's the equilibrium.
We're headed.
You got it. Yeah, we got to come back into balance again, right? It would be the worst time to try to be in the market after it's been so good for the last 10 years.
I would say, like right now, go ahead and sell, make your 14, 15, 60%, give it to me at a flat 10, and then you'll average out somewhere in the next 5 or 7 years at 12 or 13, Yeah. That's almost double or way up there from the average 7.5, right?
That's right. Well, and here's the other thing people don't consider, like when they look at it, and this is again what kind of got me out of the industry. I was like, I'm really selling a bill of goods here, because one 7.5% is the average of the market. But remember, your fees still have to come out. They don't factor that in. So even if you invest in the S&P 500, you still have to pay fees, right? You're lucky to maybe pull off 6.5% return.
Well, that's not even counting the fee deduction.
That's not counting the fee deduction. That's just the return of the actual S&P 500.
We went right from crap now to bullshit. We're just right.
That's right. But see, that's the thing. You're down to 6.5%. And then, of course, unless you're investing that piddly amount in a Roth IRA, which they won't let you put much into anyways, you're going to pay taxes later. If you're dumping money in your 401k, which, by the way, a match on your 401k only adds an extra 2 to 3% compounded return a year. That's it. So if you were about 6% a year, you're maybe getting 8 or 9% with a full company match. And then you have to pay taxes on it. So then you're lucky, even with a company match, you're lucky to get a
do what the company
return.
says, and maybe the company's not that paying attention that much to your.
No, most people never even get close to market returns in their 401ks, right? So the truth is, you're lucky to pull off 4 or 5% average return a year after you pay taxes and everything else. And that is why advisors are telling you, at least the ones that are more up to speed with things, right? Some still go by the old, hey, you just pull out 4% rule. That was old numbers back when there was higher interest rates. There's low interest rates right now, including the bond market. They're telling you to live on no more than about 2%. So think about it. Even if you happen to save up $1 million, which is hard when you start throwing those numbers, you're only living on 2%. That's $20,000 a year. You just now retired below the poverty level as a millionaire. That is the problem with financial advising, is that the returns aren't enough to get you to where you need to go. Where
you're certainly not in a hurry. They're certainly not.
No.
I mean, they're always like, okay, at 65, you're going to, well, screw 65. I mean, I want to do something while I'm 50 and still can climb trees and jump off of mountains and crawl back up and do it again.
Yeah. Well, I didn't mention inflation, did I? If the real rate of inflation is not 2%, like they're trying to tell us,
it's at least 3, if it's not more. Because just look at a loaf of bread and a steak down at the local grocery store. I don't even need a calculator to know it's over 3%.
I would say it's at least 4 or 5% a year is the real return. That means you double. It means that your lifestyle has to double about every 15 years, right? Give or take. Well, that's not too unrealistic to say that, hey, I have to pay twice as much money now than I did back in 2005. That's not too far off the case, with everything else, with all the lifestyles and goods, foods you mentioned, all that kind of stuff, right? So, when you factor all that stuff in, now you're saying, wait a minute, if say it is 4% inflation, that's it. If I'm only making 4 or 5% after taxes with my stock market returns, well, I'm never going to be able to retire. And that's true.
You're just breaking even.
You are. I mean, like, for example, somebody has a 20-year retirement goal to live on a $60,000 a year lifestyle today, right? Factoring for inflation, you got to save up about $8,000 a month. That's about $100,000 a year you got to save up so you can live on a $60,000 a year lifestyle. And then you have to do that for 20 years straight. It's just not happening that way. It just will not happen. And so that's why people are banking on Social Security. Even now, even the baby boomers, right? I mean, they're moving into retirement. They still need Social Security because the retirement money they have, unless they die quickly, right? Unless they hope for COVID, to kill them off faster. I mean, they're just going to be there. They're going to run. That's the other thing.
Social Security was never meant to live off of. I don't know where anyone got that idea. It was to supplement an old person's for their prescriptions and some doctor visits. It wasn't for people to live off. I don't know where the hell people got in their mind that you're supposed to be able to live off of Social Security. I mean, you were supposed to do something for yourself in your entire life. You were supposed to get off your ass and do something. Yeah. I mean, geez, the world's going crazy.
Well, I'll tell you from my experience as a financial advisor, you need every dollar you can get. Because if you run real, honest numbers, you'll start to realize, oh, this is not working. This can't happen this way. It's the same thing as, like, I showed somebody yesterday, like they were a young couple. They're just about 30 years old each, 29, 31. And I said, hey, well, let's look what you've done. And they've already started to stuff money in their 401ks. They were actually trying to not quite max fund it, but they're getting there, right? And they have a very low lifestyle compared to their income. They're putting away like $3,000 a month just into savings, outside of the stock market, where they're dumping in like $10,000 a year in their 401k plus a match, right? Well, and I ran the numbers. I said, well, let's look at this. The next 6 years, let's look 6 years out, because they have a 10-year retirement goal. They want to have a 100,000 a year retirement goal. Well, even 6 years out on their 401k, they would only have about $400,000, but then if they could even get to the money, which they can't because they have to wait till they're 59 and a half without penalties, right? Well, even if they could get to it, they would have only about $300,000 after taxes. Well, you live on 2% of that, that's $6,000 a year. Well, I gave them an example. I said, what if you guys just bought an investment property, like a turnkey property, something simple, right? Just, because they're starting out young, just getting going with a little bit of money. I was like, start doing that. And then they start buying about 1 to 2 properties a year with the extra cash flow they have and reinvesting that cash flow. 6 years, same exact scenario. The difference was they could have about $3,500 to $4,000 a year in net profit. So if you look at that number, that's over $40,000 a year versus $6,000 a year in their 401k with a company match, right?
And that house is keeping pace with inflation because it has appreciation. It's going right. And then your balances are getting paid down, so it's creating a spread. Then you get some tax benefits that you're probably not even figuring into this right on the sketch, And then there's games to play and things to do. And you might get lucky because who knows? You can't get hit by the money truck if you're not standing in the middle of the highway. When you have all these properties, there's always that chance that one corner that you bought out in the middle of nowhere is now not a corner in the middle of nowhere. 20 years later, it's $1 million corner. You can't have those kind of things happen to you when you're not in the game, when you're not standing in the middle of the road. So
that's right.
I get it. I mean, one thing that people can do, if nothing else, I think, tell me what you think of this. I mean, at least just learn how to loan money on things that how to collateral that you understand, whether it be Corvettes or lots or mobile home lots and land or houses or small apartment complexes. I mean, figure out to loan on, because then you can put yourself in a position to where, I'm only going to loan 60 cents on the dollar. And if I happen to get the property back, I made an extra 40% on top. Not that that's the goal to take houses away from people or anything, but I'm just saying crap happens. And sometimes you are the beneficiary of some good stuff if you know how to play the game right. So,
yeah, I think that's a great point. Look again at what traditional stuff had done. When I was an advisor, I would tell people the number one investor in the stock markets to build credibility in the stock market, right, were banks and the financial institutions.
And what do they do?
Exactly.
What do they do?
But that's the thing. I never went the next step to say, like, well, what money are they investing? They're not investing their own money in the stock market. They're investing your money in the stock market. That's why they're the number one, right? But when you're set to your point, what are banks actually doing with money? They're doing exactly what you just said. They're taking their money, they're loaning it out. We're just telling you, why don't you become the bank? Why don't you do the same thing that banks are doing to make money?
Well, our sponsor, taxfreefuture.com, you won't believe what your financial advisors aren't telling you. That's what they're not telling you, is that there's better ways to make money, but that's what they're doing. So you need to stay out of that. We loan money to people, and we have collateral that if they don't pay us, we get rich. So,
right.
And they're loaning out your money. I mean, if you drive to any town, big town USA, population 1 million, 2 million, whatever, any town really, look at the tallest building and look at what name's on top of it.
Always a bank.
It's always a bank. They're taking OPM, other people's money, and they're loaning it out and they're making an arbitrage. I had so much private money at one time, I couldn't buy enough houses using my underwriting. And I don't want, just because you have a lot of money available doesn't mean you start making crappy deals and adjust your underwriting. I stay with the underwriting that I had 20 years ago. Still have it. Same exact deal. If it doesn't fit, don't buy it. But I couldn't find enough houses because I had too much private money. So I started loaning it. I opened up a hard money loan company. I started loaning it to my competitors who found deals before me. And I averaged loaning 58% of whatever that property's worth. That's what I average in a first lien position loaning. It's a safe loan. Now, I make 15, 16, 17% on those short-term loans, and it's not passive. I have to go out and look. If you want to make 16, 17, 18% on your money and be in control, it's probably not passive, okay?
Right.
If you want to make 8 or 9 or 10% on your money, you can probably find someone like Chris or myself who has a reputation and will give you good collateral. It's pretty passive.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
Yeah.
You know,
and private money?
Yeah.
Okay, so I was throwing my hat in the ring, but look, the goal of this show and the goal of my whole podcast is to find what works for you. If I work for you, great, pick me. If Chris works for you, pick him. I don't care who you pick, but pick somebody and start taking control of your own future and making the kind of returns that make sense without killing yourself.
Yeah.
And if you want to go into the business that we're in, we'll teach you that too, but it's not passive.
Right. And I love that point you made too with, you talk about the underwriting, right? You're like, I get money, I almost get too much. Well, the cool thing is if you get too much, you'll just say, you know what, I'm closing this fund. I'm taking no more private money. I'm going to master what I have right now and then do it. You're not going to sacrifice your underwriting guidelines to go do bad plays, right? You're going to make sure that worst case, you shut the money off. Think of a mutual fund money manager. Do they ever shut the money off? Never. They know this. They know that they've done bad stuff. By the way, September, you're going to see a big sell-off with the stock market because the fact that, many of those companies bought into the hype because they were fearing of missing out on Apple and Tesla, Tesla's numbers are so ridiculous that there's nothing there tangible to justify their stock price skyrocketing. And most of the tech companies too, Amazon, all these companies, and you're starting to even see like this week, we're starting to see a little bit of a sell-off, right? That's happening because of that fact. Like now the money managers are saying, oh, it's almost the end of September. I can't show I have this dumb stuff on my record that I bought these Apple and Amazon stocks because that's what dumb people buy. I'm going to sell off. And so all the people left holding the Apple and Amazon stocks are going to be holding on, screaming down the roller coaster, right? And you don't do that. They do. They'll keep buying crap because they know they have to keep using your money. If you keep throwing money at them, they're going to buy more crap.
Okay, so just to be clear, because I don't want to get any trouble here, I don't have funds. I don't commingle any money. If I have a $100,000 house, I'm borrowing $58,000 on average.
Right.
From one person, I'm giving them one lien on that one piece of collateral, and there's only three parts. There's the collateral, there's the borrower, and there's the lender, and the lender gets a first lien, and I owe it, and if I don't pay him, he gets the house. And if you don't like the house, then don't loan the money. If you don't like that collateral in exchange for whatever money, then don't do it. That's why I borrow very little against my houses, because I try to make it a no-brainer for people. Now, that being said, just as self-defense, that being said, I've never given a house back to anyone. I've never been foreclosed on. I never filed Chapter 7 or 13 or anything. But my deal is real simple with my private lenders. If you have $400,000 to get out or $1 million to get out, it's one deal at a time. I need $60,000 for this house. It's worth $120,000. You want it? You want to do it or you don't want to do it? Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Now we only got $340 left to get out, and we do one deal at a time. They all stand on their loan. It's pay as agreed or get my collateral. And my promise is, this is my promise. If I could ever not pay for whatever reason, which hasn't happened, I will walk my position in that property over to you. You will not chase me. You won't have to file foreclosure. I'll walk it to you. It's never happened, but that's my promise.
And yours, as a result, do you even have to have accredited investors?
No, I don't. That's why I want to make sure I didn't get, no one sees. So I have now I have $26 million out on the street. Most every loan is secured by one piece of real estate, and I never borrow over 65% of whatever I can sell it for at the time of the loan. So
those are awesome numbers.
So that's why it works. That's why I've been in business. That's why people like you and me stay in businesses. We don't over leverage, and and if we, just because we have excess amounts of money we could use, doesn't mean we go out and do stupid stuff with it.
That's right. Exactly. That's my point. That's what you're not seeing in the traditional world. Like, you got to get away from that stuff if you want to have a chance of success. Because I guarantee there's a 100% chance of failure doing the mainstream traditional financial advice. I've run the numbers. It's impossible to make it work. It really is.
There's never anything as no risk. In fact, it's against the law for anybody like me or Chris to say that I'll guarantee you 10. I can't guarantee that this planet will even be here tomorrow. You know what I mean?
That's right.
I can't guarantee anything. So given that notion, there's no guarantees, right? I mean, a meteor, who knows? I don't know. A pandemic, for God's sake, might happen. Who knows? So
but at least you have a real asset. That's the difference.
I think right now, and you know what's going to happen in the worst case scenario. So
you have something that's tangible. It's real. People can go and touch it, where you can't touch a stock. You say, "Well, I own ownership in this company." No, you don't. If you're buying a Xerox copy of
a piece of paper.
Of the piece of paper, right? You are buying a copy of a copy, basically. It's not even the master copy; it's the copy of the copy. It's not the real thing.
Never heard it put like that. That's pretty funny.
I always think of Michael Keaton in Multiplicity, right? When he clones himself, but then his clones decide to make a clone of themselves, and the guy's a total idiot. That's basically what stocks are. It's that clone of a clone, right? It's a copy of a copy. It's just less quality.
So what's your signature strategy that you like? What's your signature? What do you do?
So, there's a lot of different things I do. When I work with clients, I work with them like as an anti-financial advisor, helping them create the plan and looking for different strategies and things like that, where like your stuff is actually a great fit for a lot of my clients who want that collateral, but they don't necessarily want to become landlords, right?
Exactly.
They want that kind of freedom, and there's a huge market for that. The other thing I do is active because I'm semi-retired, right? I was able to get out of the rat race 4 years ago. So now I work about 20 hours a week. I try to cap it right there, although demand keeps pushing it, trying to push it higher, right? The other thing I do is actually, if you've ever heard like the infinite banking concept, that sort of thing, like you mentioned at the beginning, and talking about getting your money to pay you twice. I actually have, rather than people save money in their taxable point nothing percent savings account, I'll actually say, hey, instead, let's get your investment money to stay here where it's tax-free, protected from lawsuits and creditors, even up to the millions. And you can actually access that money quickly, right? And get a much better return, like 4 or 5% a year. And that's inside of a whole life policy. But here's the key, going back to traditional financial advisors, including traditional insurance agents, right? You do not want to buy that crap because most insurance agents are going to try to focus on what pays them, right? So if you try to buy a traditional whole life insurance policy where it's great, it builds up cash inside of it, the problem is that you're going to pay fees for the first few years and have no cash. So
it
it's
takes
just
about 4 to 7 years to outrun the fees.
Yeah, in most of the cases, it's usually like 15 plus years before you finally break even. Now,
Really?
You're right. Like the fees stop.
I was looking at one and I thought 7 years was a long time.
Yeah, I mean, you start seeing a gain, but by the time it catches up to what you've put into it, like if you put in 10,000 a year for 17 years, you'll probably have about 170,000 in a traditional plan. But mine, I do it differently. I minimize those costs, cut them all the way down, which most agents just don't do, right? So I've actually had a license for almost 19 years. I also used to hand it off, but every time I handed it off, that was always that person's profession. They always needed the money, right? Where I'm out of the rat race, I don't. So when I figured out like, well, how would I design it for me? How would I get the minimal cost to get a maximum ROI? You can get that money out the first year and go and invest it and essentially make money in two places at the same time because the money's still in there in the account while you borrow from the insurance company, like you're talking about creating leverage, right? You borrow from that bank and you use that to go and invest, and then you take the returns and pay back towards that loan, that line of credit you get. And what happens is that unlike a home equity line of credit where you only pay interest, this one pays you tax-free interest at the same time while you're investing, while you're making money over here. And you actually make an extra.
Using it as an anchor for it's almost like well, tell me if I'm wrong. I don't want to confuse this, but it's like a home equity line of credit. You're getting this benefit out of it. You're living in the home, which you normally have to pay for, but now it's paid for now, but you're still living in it, so you still get this benefit, but then you're going to borrow against it so you can invest. So you're getting two uses out of this pot of money, right? This one, it's tied up in this pot called a house, and then you're getting a home equity line of credit. You're putting it out here, but you're still living in the house. So you're like double dipping. I love double dipping. I think the scenario that you were talking about, I just ran the traps on this about a year ago. It's called Be Your Own Banker, I think, or something like that, where you bank, you buy insurance. The problem was people like you and I, or people who are dealing in hands-on real estate investing, we make such a high ROI from what we do, it doesn't make any sense to go do it. I couldn't figure out what I was missing, but my gut, when they were telling me all this stuff, they had all the graphs and charts, and I was looking at all. And I'm not the smartest guy in any room ever when it comes to this stuff, but I have this intuition. I go, something's not right. So I went over to my partner, Raymond Braun, who's I'm partnered with on the hard money business. He was a managing partner of Coopers and Lybrand, which is now PricewaterhouseCoopers in Austin for 15 years. So like he listened to it like one time through and goes, okay, here's the problem. You make way too much money to even think about doing that because you're used to making 15, 20, 25, sometimes 40% when you get lucky returns on your money. And these people are trying to help someone who's struggling with how to make 2 or 3 or 4%, get out of that 1% box at the bank. You know what I mean?
Right.
Am I right so far?
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
The infinite banking concept, like that's the thing. There's different levels of it, right? Like most of the people that even do infinite banking do a better job than the traditional life insurance people. But again, I still run the same problem. Like you said, like it's still, you get this extra cost coming out. But if you can minimize those costs, like for example, instead of losing 100% of your money to cost in the first 2 years, you could actually do it to where you get about 85% of your money in there within the first 2 years. And that's the only cost. The net cost only happens the first 2 years. And then after that, it's net gain. So by year 5, you have just as much money as you put into it, but then it's exponentially growing beyond that, right? Yes, and so you minimize cost. You then you get that extra leverage when you do invest, because you cannot retire off these insurance policies alone. It's impossible, right? Same thing I said about mutual funds. You can't do off life insurance. But when you use it with the investments, just like the type of stuff you're talking about here, right? You start using it there and flowing the money back through. It's really becoming your tax-free, supercharged savings account, right? Tax-free, and it's making a better return. And again, it's protected from creditors and lawsuits where they can't access that money in most states. The cool thing is now you've got this extra protection, this layer that can make you more money than just putting it back in your savings account to reinvest again. It's flowing the money in and then back out. It's always this flow, always investing it, building and gaining these assets until
the river starts to build momentum.
Yeah. Yeah. Give you an example. Like I ran an scenario for somebody they're doing a real estate deal. I said, hey, let's compare this to doing your normal savings account, right? And they're going to use like $95,000 for the properties. That $95,000, if you just put that money they were getting from the cash flow back to savings account or wherever, after 9 years, they're back up to like $128,000, right? But using the strategy I was using, did the same thing. It wasn't $128,000 you had $178,000. You made an extra $50,000 of gains just because, again, it's tax-free and it's earning a much better return than 0.0% in the bank, which is even worse now, you know?
Yeah. I'm not even sure how solid banks are these days. Sometimes I wonder, like, why are they, you know, I get a kick out of it. They go, because I create third party, you know, I create my own notes. I go buy a house, I fix it, and then I sell it for 2x and I sell or finance it. They called me non-traditional. They called me a non-traditional lender. I said, no, you're non-traditional. You're right. People have been loaning money to their neighbors since caveman times.
That's right.
I'm traditional. You're not traditional, but you've named me non-traditional because you're not selling me. So you don't want me to be traditional. You're selling this where everybody goes to this big place in New York and they have all these computers, and that's traditional, right? No. Mm-hmm. Traditional was, hey, I'm going to loan you 50. If you don't pay me, I get your house. Let's shake hands and sign this piece of paper. That's traditional.
Yeah. I like to refer to it as mainstream, right? Like mainstream stuff. When has mainstream ever really been good? You know, like, I mean, mainstream money has definitely never been good. Mainstream health. I mean, come on, mainstream health has got us all sick as Americans, you know, like, you know, hey, I was told bread was the biggest food group of the day, and now I've got leaky gut and I can't lose weight, and I'm dying of diabetes and heart disease, all this kind of crap because of mainstream advice from professionals.
Remember that diet we told you 5 years ago? Yeah, we're changing it again. It's not right. Exactly. It's all wrong.
Yeah, it's like, and we're trusting experts about a virus. Come on, we can't even trust experts about the freaking daily food groups, you know? That's the kind of crap we deal with. And we can't trust experts with the financial realm because they're all incentivized by money.
You're making a great point, though. I got where I'm at by using common sense. I'm not a smart guy. I don't test well at all. I can't test. You know, when I test, it's like, you know, here's the question, answer A, B, C, or D. And I'm like, well, if you tell me more about it, because it could be almost any of these answers, but you didn't tell me enough.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so I always get screwed up. But so I common sense. So you need, in my common sense way of thinking, to be independent at some point in my life. Mm-hmm. I knew I was going to have my day job. And while I had my day job, I was going to have to get on some side hustle. I was going to have to become an expert at something that would maybe in my wildest dreams outrun my paycheck.
Yeah.
Which turned out not to be that hard when I got out from under the brainwashing that I was under. It turns out that outrunning my $3,000 a month paycheck wasn't a challenge hardly at all. Mm-hmm. It took me 6-8 months to find this thing, to bone up on it, to get sure of myself, to convince my wife and my parents and everybody that I wasn't freaking loony, because they're all in the box. Mm-hmm. They're all in the box. And you're trying to tell them, let's just look out of the box. No, we don't even want to look out of the box. No. I said, well, look over there. There's some stuff going on over there. No, we don't want to look out of the box. Mm-hmm. So anyways, then you finally get up the nerve to go against the grain, against mainstream, right? Mm-hmm. And I replaced my job in like 6 or 8 months. I don't remember exactly, but it wasn't that hard.
Mainstream results create broke people, like mediocre, broke people. Like, and I guarantee if we're listening to these podcasts, it's like they listen to your show as they listen to mine. They don't want mediocre. They don't want the same old results, the same old crap over and over. There's plenty of people that tell you, like the Susie Ormans, the Dave Ramseys of the world, to tell you, hey, pay off all your debt and save all your money in these dumb mutual funds. And you know what? Someday you'll be like us, right? And the truth is, they don't even invest in those things, right? Like, that's the thing.
Dave Ramsey would have completely lost his crapola with me. I bought my first 100 houses on credit cards because 20 years ago in San Antonio, you could buy a house for $15,000, and then you get that off of one or two credit cards, and then you go get a cash advance for 10 grand off another card, and you do the rehab, and then you sell it for, you'd have 25, 30,000 in it, and then you'd sell it for 60,000. You know what I mean? And that's how I
fly anywhere in the world for free.
Damn near got me divorced because I was not going to try to explain this to my wife, but I had $250,000 worth of credit card debt that I was going to the mailbox trying to not before she would see it.
Yeah.
You learn lots of things. Like
you do.
I learned quickly that your wife's going to find out about everything. Don't even worry about it. Don't even try to hide it. So 30 days after we're married, we're about to get divorced because I racked up $250,000 worth of credit card debt. Didn't seem to matter to her that I had $500,000 worth of free and clear houses. That was irrelevant.
It's like stepping over a dollar bill to pick up that quarter, right? It's like, like if that dollar bill doesn't count, that quarter is what matters, right?
Yeah. So what's your perfect, I looked at your bio here before we're going in. It doesn't say that you're really selling anything, but you offer something to people. What do you offer to people?
The main thing I always tell people is just go follow my podcast, right? Go follow the Chris Miles Money Show because I teach a lot of these concepts there. Now, there's a few people that will resonate with that message and say, hey, this is great. Then there's some people I'll reach out, and if it's good, I'll hand select those people. If they seem right, I'll do one of two things. One, either I work with them as a client, like actual consulting, like an advisor, right? But more as a consultant to say, hey, I'm going to look at your whole situation here, see what your stuff is doing, where your assets are, or where you could find assets. Because a lot of people don't realize they have them locked in prison. How can we unlock those assets, get them out, get them working for you so you don't have to keep working for money, right? That's one thing I do. And then, of course, like I said, I design those, I like to call them a max ROI infinite banking plan, right? Which is like, how do we actually get that money working with coordination with all the investments and stuff rather than tug of war, like you throw your money here or here. It's like, no, how do we do both so we actually get that double dip effect? My
advice to people is just listen. If it makes sense to you, even though it might be a little scary because it's out of your norm, delve into it, call, do some more research. Talk to people. You don't have to do anything to listen, right? You can listen and find out if something makes sense to you. What's one of the primary places people have money locked up that they could really do something with, but they're not even seeing it?
Two places primarily. One is their house, their home equity.
I was going to guess that.
That's especially right now. This is like the golden opportunity right now because house prices are high because there's bidding wars going on right now. It's incredible.
Low interest rates are low on equity loans.
It's incredible.
2.75 or something. I don't know.
Yeah, you can a lot of times you can get. Depending on the state, right? There's HELOCs you can get for sometimes around 3.25%, 3.5%, 3.75%. That's cheap money. Like. If you can beat 3.5%, congratulations, which we already know because we've already talked about the kind of deals you do. People already do that. And they're buying real assets. I think that's the key, right? If you're going to do that, buy something real. Don't buy into paper stuff that you can't touch, taste, or feel. Don't buy your crappy Bitcoin. Don't go buy into the stuff that you can't get a hold of, right? It's got to be something real.
Tangible.
Tangible.
A house or a piece of property is tangible.
Very.
If it goes to zero, there's something definitely wrong, and your money's not worth anything anyways. We're all picking up guns and we're going somewhere. So, that's what I like to say is like the day that this house zeroes out in downtown San Antonio, we got problems. And your money wasn't worth anything a long time ago. Heaven forbid you were in the stock market because if this house isn't worth anything, the stock market must have evaporated. Was gone a long time before that.
Exactly. Property is real. It's something you can do. So that's one place. It's definitely home equity is a key, and it's cheap money right now. Number two is usually like savings or retirement accounts or things like that, right? And if somebody has a retirement account, I can't legally tell them to cash out the retirement account, but here's the thing. 2020 has a unique year. I mean, besides the fact that the market hit all-time highs, even though we're in the middle of a recession, right? If that's anything to tell you this is a warning point, maybe not to be in the market. Right now, 2020, if you've been affected by COVID in any way, shape, or form, so either you or immediate family members were, ill with the actual virus, or two, your job or your income or your business was affected because of COVID, right? You can actually access up to $100,000 of your 401k or IRA money with no 10% early withdrawal penalty. So if you're not 59 and a half yet and you're saying, hey, I've got money locked up in these plans, but I have to wait till I'm 59 and a half. Well, good news. You can actually get that money out up to 100 grand, no 10% penalty, and you actually break up your taxes over 3 years. So you don't have to pay all the taxes this year. You break it up over 3 years even. So it allows your money to work for you now. So it's, again, market's at all-time highs. It won't stay that way forever. I guarantee it. It will not stay up where it is, where it's unreasonable, right?
And that opportunity won't last forever either.
No. So, possibly getting your money away from the market, get away from gambling in those stocks, right? To then go into, again, real tangible assets that pay you cash flow, pay you real returns. That, I think, is going to be the key difference in creating people's freedom.
So, I had this one lady who's been loaning me money for a long time, over 20 years. And she's up in her late 70s, and she surprised me about 5 years ago. She comes and goes, I got another $80,000 I want to loan you. And I said, well, you told me like a month ago you were tapped. What happened? I don't see where we paid anything off in bulk here, Yeah. She says, I went and got a home equity loan on my house.
Yep.
And I thought, that's a pretty bold move. I would never ask people to do that, because that's a personal thing. That's a home. A lot of people got a stigma about it. That's the one thing I got. And, I'm not.
Yeah.
My wife was that way with my house. Like, you're not borrowing against our house. Can you leave one thing sacred for God's sake, Mitch? No. And, but she came in and I said, so what's the plan? She said, well, I got this at like 3.5 or whatever interest rate. She says, and you're paying me 10. So I'm going to make the spread off of money that was just sitting there. And I thought, that's a pretty smart lady, a bold. Of course, she had a long track record with me, and she's not awake at night worrying about any of that after 20 years, But it does take a little different thought process sometimes to take your home equity and do that. So
it's a hard leap for people because you've been entrenched in that mainstream, advice of pay it off, which is what the banks taught you because they don't want you to keep a loan with them. They'll make interest regardless.
They only want you to pay to pay the payments for the first half, and then when it gets down to where there's no interest due, now now it's a good time for you to pay it off.
Exactly. Yeah. That's why 15-year mortgages are lower. They want you to pay it off faster. Just like any good investor, you want to get your principal back as quickly as possible so you can go and do it again and create velocity and acceleration of money, right? But that's not where we're taught. We're taught to do the opposite, to fill in their little buckets.
I always have that struggle. It's like there's 5 years left on this loan on this storage facility. Let's just pay it off. Well, that's the only years that I'm not paying hardly anything in interest. You know what I mean? Right. It's the only years. Why would I pay it off now? I earned my way all the way down to the point where the payment is almost all principal. And then I'm going to go pay it off early and give them a reason to celebrate over there. It's a weird phenomenon how it works. It plays right into the bank's hands.
It does. Like, I'll give you a real life scenario. I had a client that I worked with years ago that came back to me like 10 years later, said, hey, I'm in a different position. Here's my goal. I want to pay off my own house in San Diego and my investment property in California, which, by the way, whenever I hear people say they have investment property in California, I was like, sell it. You haven't seen the numbers. I guarantee it's high equity and no cash flow. And it always is, right? And that's even true on the whole West Coast for that matter. But he told me, he's like, this investment property. His goal was take all the money, reinvest it to pay down his mortgage on both properties. That was a 6-year plan. And what it would do, that 6 years of finally paying him off, would free up about $4,500 a month. Now, I said, you know what? That property there, that investment property, it's got over about $500,000 of equity trapped in there. And you're making what, $200 a month? Yeah. Sell it.
There's your $4,500 a month and you only had to make one move.
I know. That's why I told him. It's like, sell that property, get the equity out. Even if you only made $400,000 after sales fees, right? Let's just say you sold it for less than what you hoped for. $400,000. Plus you've got equity in your house. Cash out $400,000. It would only add about $1,000 a month to his mortgage payment, but he gets $400,000. I said, now you got $800,000. Now invest that. Even if you only earn 10% on that money, that's $80,000 a year. So in truth, you're actually netting over about $70,000 a year by not doing that. But here's the cool thing: that $70,000, you take it, keep reinvesting it, keep buying into these kind of things we talk about, like we're talking about on the show, right? When you do that after 5 years, his cash flow goes from, instead of trying to free up $4,500 a month in 6 years, he's now got over $10,000 a month of passive income after those same 5 or 6 years.
That's why you need a second set of eyes sometimes, because you're too emotionally tied to your crap.
Absolutely. That's exactly it. Like it's just about a different perspective.
I get my partner says, all right, here's a spreadsheet of what I owe and what I got coming in, going out. Where am I? What do I do with this? There's like 900,000 things I can do. Like, what's the smart move? You know?
Exactly. And it's always case by case, like in your case, like your smart move is going to your expertise, right? And keep drilling and I mean, no pun intended if you do oil and gas too, but you're drilling, you're mining your own investments. You're trying to create as much acceleration as you can, right? As well as creating, residual passive incomes and things like that. It's no different for the rest of us, but each one of us have our own unique recipe that we do, right? Like every person has their own combination of what might be the right investments for them. Like one key point I teach is, don't do an investment that you wouldn't want to have when you're retired anyways. Like if it's something that just drains you or keeps you in fear, it's not the investment for you. Even if it pays you lots of money, if you wouldn't want to do that, even if you were financially free, that's not the investment for you, because that's just going to make you feel like you're working for a paycheck. It's a job.
Good advice. You're earning that every day with your anxiety and your frustration. And
that's right. Yeah.
So I want everyone to go to 1000houses.com/miles, MILES, and there'll be contact information over there. There'll be a link to his show. What's the name of the show again? Chris Miles Money Show?
Yep, that's right. The Chris Miles Money Show.
Okay. Check it out. As always, all of us podcasters could use a like or a follow or something. It really helps us a lot. So if you get over there, see if you can grace us with that move. Anything you want to say to people maybe before we wrap it up, Chris?
I just say that, what I say to everybody, right? There's more hope than you probably realize. Like you probably have more freedom within your control than you probably realize. You just got to be able to see differently, reject the mainstream and start focusing on what has actually been proven to work. Like you said, since back in the days when there was farmers, right? Like doing the same thing.
Cavemen. I'll let you borrow these 3 rocks if you'll give me 4 rocks when you come back in a year, okay? Take this.
That's right. Principles always work. Strategies change over time, but if you follow the right principles with the right strategies, it's going to work. And so that's the key.
Yeah, just if it doesn't make common sense to you, then you're not ready yet. It should all fall in line when you talk to somebody who knows. It should make sense to you.
I agree.
They may not be advertising it on the, in between your favorite show on TV, but doesn't mean it's not right.
That's right.
All right, my friends, this is Mitch Stephen with 1000houses.com podcast. We've been with Chris Miles. I'd like to thank you for stopping by to get you some Chris Miles. Check it out, 1000houses.com/miles, MILES, and you can probably get a consult with him, see if y'all are a fit or not. If you're a fit, he'll let you know, and if not, he'll guide you one way or the other. You guys know how to find me if you need to find me. We're out of here. I appreciate everybody. Bye now.